Hello, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. This is going to be part 2 of the examples as to what I personally experienced, based upon what I've learned in the mental health field, based on what I now call domestic violence culture, not rape culture. As for what victims go through after being abused. So, on to the next one. He's, say it nicely, effing her. Why do you want to be with him when he is effing her? First of all, did you see it? Did you see him doing it? I honestly don't believe it unless I've seen it. Especially if I'm the one with that person, I'm not going to believe everything that's said about them. I mean, heck, the rumor about me being a lesbian was going around, I gave them a little, upper. I said, you can tell them that I got a used penis on eBay and it's working quite well for me. I wonder what that rumor turned into, right? Hopefully he will apologize. Well, an apology would be nice, but a person needs to change their behaviors and actions. That's my response to that. My current situation is not any different than what I have with my dad. In both situations, that person has been abusive to me. Just because it is my father doesn't make it any different. They need to make changes if I ever consider to let them back into my life. The situation involving Ken is only different in this because I never once expected Ken to ever apologize to me for anything that he has done to me. Because I have shown in previous videos, he has seen the proof of it, and he never apologized for anything that he did to harm me. I already knew that about Ken before the recent bullying incident, meaning one of the expectations I didn't have for Ken was that he would step up to what he had done wrong. So even when I was asked by others if Ken will apologize to me, I actually laughed or looked at them like they are nuts to actually even think that in the first place. But, of course, certain ones didn't know him, so I can't really think they're nuts for thinking that. But based on what I've known of him and things that, happened that I even showed proof of, he never apologized. So, that's one of the expectations I did not expect of him, is to actually apologize. As for my father and Grumpster, I honestly don't think that my father will ever apologize. But I did think that Grumpster may have it in him to apologize for what he did to harm me. I still do. Out of the three of them, I would actually expect Grumpster. Out of, I'd say, most likely as to levels, Ken would be the least likely to apologize, then my father, but Grumpster would be most likely. So Ken's at the bottom, actually, I should say, of the list as to apologizing for things he did to harm me. The other two, If he calls, tell him that you just need time away from him to think about all that happened. Which is true. That's actually true, especially for a victim in my situation, as to how I responded based upon what I've discussed based on conditioned normalized victimization syndrome. We don't want to see that it's not this anymore. It's what we wanted, and it benefited us in good ways to say, can I just pretend that this isn't who they are and just pretend of what they were, or I thought they were? Yeah, that's the hardest part. One of the hardest parts of dealing with it, and that's what a victim goes through. At that time, I knew what I needed to do. Like I said, there's the need and the want. I know I needed to accept the fact that it happened, and I can't turn back time and erase what happened, unfortunately. Just like with my father, it's not any different. as much as I want to think of him as where he was here, as when he showed me love and actually showed that he cared, that's of course what I wished I could see. But one thing I learned from all of this, everybody says that you learn something, not everything, and it should have never happened. But one thing I did learn from the recent experience with Rumster is that I don't deserve that. I shouldn't accept it. And as for forgiveness, I don't believe in that, as I stated. People only deserve my forgiveness if they actually make changes in their behaviors. I also made that mistake with Ken, is that I just let it go. Like I stated, he never apologized for the things that were done to me, that he harmed me. So that's one thing that I personally need to work on, is people that don't deserve my forgiveness. And I need to stick to that. Even if what I wanted was good and it did positively affect me in my life in good ways that made me happy, I have to realize that it's this that is how it is. And I have to accept that, whether I like it or not. So at the time, I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't want to focus on the consequences, punishment of dealing with accepting that Grumster is no longer that person I had known. Next one. Oh, so he attempted to rape you. Oh my goodness. Even other people are like, wow. It's, especially if it's a victim themselves saying that. It's like, yeah, he actually did. It's like, I don't know. It's really dumb how people think, just because I'm stronger doesn't mean that, it didn't happen. Just because he didn't, ejaculate, so that means it didn't happen. I mean, come on, or how far it got in, or whatever. Oh my goodness. Oh well, at least he stopped when you yelled at him. Yeah, no means no. I mean, I even remember Ken saying that. He knows that. That's something that everybody knows. Of course, you're going to come up with excuses and exceptions as to why. Almost like the females, the two of them so far, one tonight, stating that, of course, like I said, sloppy hypocritical ageism. They think that I already did that with that person, just assumes it, and if I didn't and I was with them that long, I'm a tease. It's like, again, people have different morals about sex. If you want to go around, ball sniffing and, tuna boat crotch sniffing, go right ahead. But as in what Ken had taught me, I'm not going to do anything just to make somebody else happy. In a relationship, it should be equal. And I'm not going to do something that doesn't make me happy. It's not worth it. And that's exactly right, based on what Ken said. Are you freaking kidding me? Any penetration, no matter how far they were able to get it up, how long it lasted, or if they cummed or not, is still rape. Yeah, he stopped, but it should not have happened in the first place. It is well known that sexual encounters need to be consensual between both parties. Next one. I would have run out of there. I would have slapped him and walked out if he touched me without my permission. I would have shot him. Well, again, that's where the fight, flight, or freeze comes in. You don't know what you're going to do. Every situation is different, no matter what you think. I was, like I said, that person who used to think, oh, if this happens, I'm tough, I'm going to beat them up. You don't know what you're going to do in that situation when it actually happens. Like I said, I was sexually assaulted more than 3 times, and every time is different. You don't know what will, in fact, do as to what happens to you. You don't know what you'll do. Even if it has happened to you before, our bodies naturally respond with the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Exactly what I described as for why I mainly prefer to discuss serious emotional topics with men, is because most females make it out to be a competition, seriously. You are not better than another female just because you think you can or would do something in a way that you think is the only right way to do it. Saying, oh, I would have shot them, I would have slapped them, I would have run out, I would have called the police right away, I would have done this. You don't know what you're going to do. See, that's exactly what I was discussing as to why I enjoyed talking with Ken, because it wasn't based on competition. He didn't make himself out like he was better than me, or anything like that. He didn't judge me based upon what I'd done. The way he spoke wasn't in a way of competition. And most females I've noticed, they do. And it's about competition based upon morals and, how they'd react in certain situations based upon those morals, even if they themselves do things that would be seen as immoral, to certain people. I can't believe that blank did that. I had a feeling that he was just hanging around you because you were a challenge or goal for him to have sex with. So based on your personal perception of who you think a person is actually the all-telling as for what a person would do. Like I said, I don't just follow gossip and make an opinion unless I actually experienced it with that person. I don't know if that gossip is true or not, just like I'm a lesbian, remember? Also, like I had discussed in another video based on condition normalized victimization syndrome, is that the victim doesn't need to hear what a jerk the person is. Of course they know they're a jerk, when they're abused. I mean, they definitely don't need to hear it. It's hard enough that they're having to go through the process of what I know as grievance that most people don't understand, which I'm going to be going over, is the grievance, just like I did with my father, realizing he's not this anymore and he's this. Same with Ken. There's things that I had to grieve based upon the relationship I had with him when I was friends with him that I don't have and won't have anymore. And knowing that he's this. Same with Rumster. It's not as easy as one would perceive. And believe me, I know, because I used to be that person. God, why do they stay with them? What a jerk. That's not going to help the victim come to where they need to in that process. A victim doesn't need to hear others' opinions based upon their views of that victim's relationship with their offender. If you weren't the one in that relationship, then you don't know shit as for what happened during it. Even the victim doesn't know for certain whether that offender had bad intentions from the start or not. It's hard enough for the victim to question whether or not that person who they trusted and had those feelings for weren't the same for them throughout that entire time they had a relationship with each other. Absolutely true. Many people automatically make assumptions, say, well, I believe that this happened, it sounds like this happened. I don't even do that. Even though I'm in that situation, or if I'm not, you really can't tell. And that's another hard thing to deal with, is not really knowing, was he planning this the whole time, or was any of it real? That's something that a victim has to go through, in circumstances such as mine that happened, and, coming to the acceptance that it's not that, or just not knowing, actually, as to whether there was actually good, or if there was never good. That's not something that helps a victim get through it. And they, nobody really knows, especially if the victim doesn't really know, because they're the ones in that relationship. How would somebody else know? So this is based upon relationships, as I stated. I'm basing it upon intimate partnership, or even like close friendships. People really can't tell for sure unless they were that person who was in that relationship as to everything that happened, to really know exactly what happened and how it happened or why. I would avoid him, not look at him or talk to him ever again. How they chose to handle it, it is not the same for another person or how they would think they would handle it. Just because you are afraid of your offender doesn't mean that everyone else will be too. Your way of handling traumatic events is not a dried cut plan that fits for everyone else. Again, going back to females making it out to be competition. So far as you've seen, there are quite a bit of things that people say that really aren't that helpful. And I'm not just saying this for myself as a way of revenge, but this is based on things that I have learned in the mental health classes that I've taken based upon this topic specifically. And also lengthening it to get a better understanding of what else happens to victims during the time that they're trying to heal. There's so many things that I'm actually seeing myself, for the first time that I honestly didn't believe, like I stated in the first part of this. I really did not believe that this is actually possible, that people do these things or say these things or whatnot, but it actually is true. So, like I stated, not only the mental health field, but also society and the culture itself as to ways that people think are actually things that can actually encourage and enable abuse in all areas to continue. And we all play a factor in that. And I've also shown how all abuse can actually relate to the other, like online bullying, the abuse that I had with my 3 alcoholics, the situation that's happening now, the 2 situations. So abuse can happen and follow in that same type of pattern that it does in other types of abuse. So that's another reason why I'm changing it to domestic violence culture, as to what victims go through, similarly to what we see as known as rape culture, that I want to be domestic violence culture. And again, this is not for just myself, but this is because I want to improve the mental health field and hopefully reach out to other victims and others that are not victims to have a better understanding. I get questioned many times by many people based upon domestic violence when they know somebody else that's going through it as to why they do this and asking me questions. So this is where I can actually hopefully help others who may be questioning, who knows somebody who is going through domestic violence situation, and how they can actually help in a effective way that will actually help the victim. So I'll be doing another part and continuing this as for examples in another video. I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. See you next time.